Hello, Drive45. My name is Ben. We met on Reddit, and I thought I would give you just a little bit more information based on what we were talking about. I was using words. You're a visual learner, so here's some visuals to associate with those words. So we were talking about like understanding where all of the tones are in any given chord at any given time, right? And like I said, I have, I think a bunch of really killer exercises. The first one I described to you is just knowing all these notes, knowing all of these notes, the fifth fret, knowing all the notes on the seventh fret, knowing all the notes on the 12th fret. You probably already know the cheat for the fifth fret, which is obviously the string above. We talked about that. You might not know the cheat for the seventh fret, which is just the string below, right? So if you imagine here, if there was a string below our E string, right? There was a string that was like down more. You could really think about that as like, oh, well, this is an E string, right? So if I go down a string, I'm at the B string. The seventh fret on the E string is B. It's the same as the string below it, right? And if we go up a string, now we're playing the seventh fret on the A string. Well, that's going to be the same as E, the string below the note that we're playing, right? And again, the seventh fret on the D string is going to be the note A. Seventh fret on the G string is going to be the note D. And when we go up to the B string, like everything else, we have to shift, right? So we shift up a half step because the guitar's fucked up. And so we're going to play, now this note's G. Again, it's the pitch of the string below it. Now when I go to the high E, I have to shift back because of that E, G string discrepancy. And I get back to E, or excuse me, to B, the note B on the high E string. So I have B, E, A, D, G, B again, right? So that's my seventh fret. Again, like those landmarks are imperative because that gives you all of the ground between 7 and 12. And you should know the 12th fret cheat is that it's the same thing as the open strings. So if you know your open strings, and, excuse me, coffee burps, your 5th fret and your 7th fret and your 12th fret, you're always at most a whole step away from a note that you know, right? Because if you're playing maybe the 2nd fret, well, that's just a whole step away from open. If you're playing the 4th fret, you're a half step away from 5. You're playing the, 10th fret, cool, you're a whole step away from 12. Playing the 9th fret, you're a whole step away from 7, okay? So you want to do that and make sure that you know all of those notes immediately, no hesitation whatsoever. You can say them up and down, back and forward, say them so you're skipping a string. You want to be able to do like E, D, A, G, D, B, G, E, right? Or what is it? A, G, D, C. That's the 5th fret, not the 4th fret. C, G, E, right? So you want to be able to just bounce back and forth very quickly between each of these notes and just know them, right? And then the next piece of that, so that's like the first step to your, where's the camera? First step to your scaffolding. The second step then is understanding, like I said, understanding these half step and whole step relationships between each of them, and that you can slide from any note to one of those 4 landmarks. And then the third step is really just doing all of that stuff, right? And again, you don't have to memorize all the notes on the fingerboard. I know you were talking about trying to get like a really comprehensive understanding of everything right now, and I totally get that. I get like the need for depth versus breadth. Thing here is that if you practice this as well as, there's a ton of other exercises that I or anyone else could give you to practice chords and chord scale tone relations. Just by practicing it a whole bunch, you actually learn the letter names while you're going. It's like I never like sought out to learn every note on the guitar. Even in music school, I don't think it was like a requirement. You just like learn it at some point. It just kind of happens because you're playing so much and you're thinking about relationships on the fingerboard all the time. And this is what we call fingerboard theory as opposed to music theory. So, cool. So that's how you figure out where those notes are. Okay. The other thing is then like using octave relationships can be super helpful. So if you know where a note is on the E string, you should know where it is on the D string. If you know where a note is on the A string, you should know where a note is on the G string. If you know where a note is on the D string, which is the same as the E string, then you should know where a note is on the B string because you have this funny octave shape, major 7 octave, right? Cool. So that's like kind of that last little chunk, putting all this stuff together to learn these notes. Now, while this is super helpful and requires some memorization, it's a little bit dry for most people. I like this kind of thing, but most people don't. Most of my students are not super engaged in this, or at least like interested. So, I mean, again, it's pretty dry. It takes some work and some time, but it'll happen. It comes together. You just need to give it some time. Now, the next piece I talked about using triadic inversions as a tool to understand where notes are in specific chords. I suggested triads. I usually start students on triads because there's only 3 notes, right? So it's a little bit simpler. And for someone like you who's new to maybe this way of thinking about the instrument, or if you're struggling to visualize some of this stuff, I would really encourage you to start with triads. If you don't know what a triad is, or you can't remember, it's a chord that's built of 3 notes, and the notes are 1, 3, and 5, or 1 flat 3 and 5, or 1 3 sharp 5, or 1 flat 3 flat 5, whatever. It's really just a 3-note chord. Right now, for this exercise that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to focus on major. Maybe I'll do minor too. And that's really what you should be thinking about right now. And you should be doing this in all keys on all string sets. So like I mentioned before, there's string set 4, 5, 4, 3. Okay, and that's a triad on 5, 4, 3, by the way. And there's the string set, I'm sorry, that's 6, 5, 4, and then 5, 4, 3. Yeah, and then 4, 3, 2, and then 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is the same triad shape. Looks different, yeah. Okay, so those all look different, but they're actually the same shape, and I'd be happy to explain that to you in further detail. It can be a bit confusing sometimes. All right, so I'm just going to show you this on, let's say, the top 3 strings. I think the most efficient for most guitar players who play rock and pop and blues and just like traditional stuff, modern music, contemporary music. For most guitarists that are trying to understand that stuff, the most useful string voicings for this type of thing, these triads, is going to be either 3, 2, 1, which is like your D chord shape, right? Or 4, 3, 2, which is going to be like this G shape. You might know this chord, or like the F chord, just on the strings 4, 3, and 2, right? So these kinds of chords and these kinds of chords work really well in any kind of contemporary guitar music. And the reason why is that it allows you to stay away from chords that piano players will be playing, and also chords that other guitarists are playing, right? Because a lot of inexperienced guitarists are just playing the chords that they see written out in songs. So maybe like a G to C major chord progression, or like G C D, let's say like a 1 4 5. So you have like G. Ooh, that's loud. Right? Turn that down a little bit. It's getting a lot. So you have this 1 4 5 chord progression. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, feel free to ask. I'm assuming based on your experience in theory that you do know what I'm talking about. So if I have this one playing a song, it's like, hey on sleepy, sleepy, hey on, hey on sleepy, sleepy, hey on. Right, it's just 1 4 5, but like that's the way most guitar players would play it, especially guitar players who haven't really dove into these triads or any kinds of inversions or anything like that, right? But suddenly I can play that same progression of G, C, and D. Okay, I can play it in a way that's just going to sound higher up on the guitar neck. So I can play G like this. I can play C like this. Play D like this. Hang on, sloopy, sloopy, hang on. Hang on, sloopy, sloopy, hang on. Right, and so now I'm just doing these. These are also like the reggae voicings. Hang on, sloopy, sloopy, hang on. What's that mob song? 3 little birds, each by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true. This is my message to you. So these are the 3-2-1 voicings, the same idea, but now on 5-4-3, which is the other really common one for, again, all of this stuff. Yeah, so that would be like C, D. That's my G chord. So these chord voicings are just, they're so useful, dude. They're just really amazing. Any context where you're playing with another chordal instrument, or even like a bass, man, because the bass is going to cover a lot of this low stuff. So you want to be playing things that are a little bit voiced a little bit higher on the instrument. Okay, anyway, so this inversion exercise. Start with your D major chord, okay? And we're just going to play the strings 3-2-1. In fact, I'm not even going to use a pick. I'm just going to use my fingers. Okay. So this is my lowest, I should say, the lowest version of a D major chord that I can play on this string set. Okay. And then I'm going to go up to the next one. Well, if I analyze what's going on in this chord shape, okay, what I have is, first of all, I know the root is here, which is super useful. If you can find the root quickly, you want to stick with that because it's going to help you develop an understanding and a visualization of the rest of the form. So here's the root. In this case, it's D because I'm playing a D. And then below it, I have the 5, which is A. And I know I can find that that's a 5, right? And I can find it because I can play the low A string, and then I can play an octave up, right? I have this relationship between the open A string and the second fret on the G string. So I have this A, which is 5 and D. The D major chord is D, F sharp, A. And then I have D, which is the root. And then on top, I'm going to have F sharp because I only have 3 notes. I can also see that that's F sharp because this note is E, F, F sharp, right? Or maybe you know that this is G, and a half step down is F sharp. So we have D major, and this is called second inversion. You don't need to worry about that right now. It's not relevant for what we're talking about, but it is something that you would eventually want to know. So this is like a second inversion D major triad, okay? Now to invert the chord, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom note. In this case, it's the 5, it's the note A, and I'm going to move it up to the next note. It's in a D major triad, right? So if I'm thinking about it right now, my D major triad is stacked thus. I have A on the bottom, I have D in the middle, the root in the middle, and I have F sharp on top. Now, I'm going to think about those things as chord tones now because it's way easier when you start. So I have 5 on the bottom, I have 1, the root, and then I have the third. Okay, well, an inversion is just taking this note from the bottom and moving it on top. So now I should have, my new chord should be the root, the major third, and the 5, right? Which is like a root position triad. Last one was a second inversion. This is a root position triad. And again, it's 1, 3, 5. It makes sense that we would call it a root position triad. So if I do that on the instrument now, check it out. I take the bottom note and I'm just going to move it up to the next, there you go, up to the next note in that D major triad. Well, this is A, this is the 5, so the next note above 5 is going to be the 1, right? 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, right? So on 5, I'm going to move up to the 1. Here's my note D. You can quickly find that by recognizing either that it's the 7th fret, which you should know, or that it's an octave from your A, 5th fret of your A string, which you should know. So here's your D. Okay, we moved our 5 up to our 1, groovy. Now on the next string, we're going to take the note that we're playing on the next string, in this case the root, remember? So I'm going to take that root and I'm going to move it up to the next note. Well, what comes after 1? 3 comes after 1. So I'm going to move this up a third, up to the major third. Here's my F sharp. F sharp is the 7th fret on your B string. Again, it's a half step away from that G, which we kind of talked about knowing. So here's your F sharp. All right, cool. Well, what that means then is I've moved my A, my 5 up to the 1, and I've moved my 1 up to the 3. I have these 2 notes now in my new inversion. Finally, I had the 3 on top, remember? So I had in this first chord I played, the second inversion D major triad, I'm playing 5, 1, 3, so the 3 is on top. Well, 3 is going to go up to 5. It's the next number in that major triad. So 3 is going to go up to 5. In this case, it's the note A. You don't have to know that, right? What you have to know is either the relationship between a major third and a 5th, Or the 5th fret on your high E string is the note A, and if you have the music theory together, like you suggested, then you should know very quickly that A is the 5 in a D major triad. Okay, so anyway, here's my 3. I'm going to move it up to 5, like I just said. Cool. Weird's going on with my lighting right now. All right. Anyway, so moving this up. I moved it up to here, and I already know the other 2 notes. We just figured them out. So look, I have a root position D major triad, and that looks like 1, 3, and 5. So here I had a second inversion, 5, 1, 3, and now I'm going to the root, 1, 3, 5. Okay, and now I'm going to go up to the last inversion. So for every note in a chord, in this case there are 3 notes, for every note in a chord there will be that number of inversions because each note has an opportunity to be the bass note, right? The lowest note. Bass doesn't mean root, it just means the lowest note that you're playing on the instrument at any given time, right? Treble or soprano, however you want to think about it, it's going to be the highest note. Bass is going to be the lowest note that you're playing in any particular voicing. Okay, and you can think about 4-note voicings as like bass, tenor, alto, soprano. If you're familiar with SATB, if not, then whatever method works for you. I have a whole bunch of other ways that I think about it, and would be happy to send you some more info. Anyway, so now we have our root position triad. I said first inversion. That's my bad, man. It's not a first inversion. It's a root position triad. Maybe I did say root position. I don't know. So here's a root position triad. Here's our second inversion triad. Root position, that means the only one we have left is a first inversion triad because we have root position, first inversion, second inversion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this note, which we said was D, or the root, and we're going to move it up to the next number, which is 3. So 1 goes up to 3. Cool. It's not too bad. I'm going to just hold on to that visually for a minute, that this is the 11th fret. I'm going to go back to my previous chord voicing. And now here I'm playing the 3. Okay, and the 3 has to go up to 5 because it's the next number in a D major, or in a major triad. So 5 is here. It's the note A. We already figured that out, but in case you didn't know, you can see this relationship from major third to 5th. It's a minor third. That interval between those two is a minor third. Or you just know that A is the 5 in a D major, or there's a bunch of different ways to visualize it. I actually do this technique, right? I know that this is the 12. No, 3 plus 5 plus, yeah, the 12th. So I know that the 12th is here when my root is here. That's one of many ways that I can find that quickly. But anyway, digress. So I've now found these 2 notes, and I'm going to keep like a mental image of that while I go back to my root position triad. The top note on my root position triad is a 5 because it's 1, 3, 5. The 5 is going to go up to 1 because that's the next note in this cycle of notes. So 5 goes up to 1. Well, D is the 10th fret on my high E string. You should know that. You should probably know by now all of the natural pitches on your low E string and your high E string and maybe your A string too. That's how we find bar chords. So most people, at the point in your playing, most people know that. And if you don't, let me know and we can go through it real quick. It shouldn't take you long to understand those notes. So here we are. Now we're at our first inversion. Okay, and then I'm going to complete this cycle by going up to the root position, or to the first shape I did, which in this case was second inversion. So I'm going to go back up to this D chord now, right, which is the same chord that I was playing here. Yeah. Okay, so again, review. I'm going to just play it real quick so you can hear. I'm going to go up and down, which is how you should practice this. Cool. So that's how I practice this. Now, when I was first learning these things, I really wanted to know, like you do, I really wanted to know what those scale tones were. So the method that I came up with is to start on the lowest. It doesn't matter how you do it. This is just my method. Start on the lowest pitch you're playing, the bass note of every chord. And there are 2 different things that I've done. One is to say the lowest note and the highest note. And with a triad, that's easy because the only note that's left is your middle tone. So again, it's like you can intellectually just sort of figure that out quickly. With any 4-note chord, 1, 3, 5, 7, there's a special relationship between 3 and 7 and 1 and 5 that you see when you start playing the chords on the neck. And for specific chord voicings, those relationships between 3 and 7, 1 and 5 makes it easy to figure out if you just know the bottom note that you're playing and the top note that you're playing. It's really easy to figure out what the two middle notes are just based on knowledge of those relationships. So if I was you and I was sitting down to practice this, I would be using a metronome. I'd be using a comfortable tempo that I can play this. I'd probably count 4 clicks between each of the chords, and then when I'm playing each of the chords, I'm going to go ahead and say the bottom note and the top note for that chord. And I'll even turn a click on here because I love metronomes and I just think they're amazing. So, all right. A, F sharp, D, A, F sharp, D, A, F sharp, D, D, A, F sharp. So again, I'm saying the bottom note and then the top note. We could also do A, D, F sharp, D, F sharp, A, F sharp, A, D, F sharp, A, D, F sharp, A, D, F sharp. Okay, that's a great way to do it. I think learning those names is a bit too difficult at first, though, like we talked about. So instead, I would be doing the scale tones, right? So what notes are we playing? We're playing a 1, 3, and a 5. And so I would just go through and do the exact same thing, but saying those notes instead as numbers. So if I'm doing just the bottom note and then the top note, I have 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 3, 1, 1, 5, 5, 3. Or I could say each number as I'm going, right? So 5, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, 3, 5, 1, 1, 3, 5, 5, 1, 3. Okay? And so again, that's kind of like a really useful way to do this. Now, this is already getting to be 22 minutes. Geez. Okay. So I'm not going to do minor, right? But the idea with minor is the same. Instead of doing the major chords, you're just going to do the minor chords. Right? And you should know maybe some of these voicings. I'm sure you know the D minor voicing. Okay? So the idea is you do this exercise and you do it in all keys. So I use the cycle of fourths and the cycle of fifths with most of my students. If you're going to do the cycle of fourths, it would be something like this. C, right? I'm playing the C, starting on C. So I have C. And then going back down, I would switch to F. And then going back up, I'd switch to B flat. And then going back down, I would switch to E flat. And then going back up, I would switch to, what's up a fourth from E flat? A flat? Yeah, so, where's that one? A flat, nope, that's A. Geez, Ben, what am I trying to do? It's spaced out. Oh yeah, major. Gosh, it's too early. So there's A flat, I'm sorry, man. Here's A flat, here's my next A flat, and here's my next A flat. It's like I need to go back in the woodshed. And then we go to D flat, right, which is here. G flat. There's one in the middle there, huh? And then up to, what is it, B? Up to E. Yeah. Up to A. Up to D, which we already did. Down on G. Back to C. Right, so what I did then was I played every major key, all 12 major keys, and I did it with these Triadic Inversions. And so I played basically 36 chords, right, chord voicings, because there's three inversions per chord or per key, and there's 12. those. Yeah, man. And then you do the whole thing in minor, and then you do the whole thing down a set of strings. So you're like, and those, honestly, if you can get those two string sets together, that's like the bulk of, like I said, the bulk of like contemporary guitar playing. Although, of course, you can do stuff down here, right? So that's the same idea. 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, right? 3, 5, 1, yeah. And then 5, 1, 3. Okay, so now I can do that on this string. Right, it's the same idea. So you can take any three strings, any three adjacent strings. So 6, 5, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, and 3, 2, 1. And you can play these triads. And then you can start working on non-adjacent strings. So then you get these cool triads like a C major, which is the low, the open E string, and then your 1, that's your 3, and then your 1, and then your 5. Right? Most people don't think about this as sounding like a C major chord. But that's exactly what it is, right? Or this is like another cool one. Right? I have 1, 5, 3. And these are actually inversions of each other. Right? I'm trying to remember what the other one looks like. Oh, it's mad hard. Jeez. That's it. Yeah, I can't even see it. So I have 3, 1, 5. Okay. And then I have 5, 3, 1. And then I go up and I have 1, 5, 3. And then 3, 1, 5. Okay, so those are just another set, and those ones are super cool and have their own cool uses. Right, you get the idea. So I'll try and work up a quick sheet for you today that's got this stuff. I'll just do it right now. I'll send you a quick sheet so you can see it. You said you're a visual learner. It's the best way to go. Also happy to keep talking to you about this stuff on Reddit. I love talking about music. Like I said, I'm a professional music instructor. I've been doing it for 17 years. I'm pretty different as far as instructors are concerned. I don't like do hour lessons or half-hour lessons. I do meetings where we get together, we discuss what kind of requirements are on your list of requirements, or what kinds of things you're trying to do on the instrument, and we talk for a while, and I figure out where you are already, set goals, and then I get you to those places. And I guarantee that for students, as long as students do what I tell them when I tell them to, they'll be successful. So that's kind of it, man. Like I said, if you need any more help, I'd be happy to chat with you on Reddit, but I'm trying to do this like all the time with people because I just love chatting about music, so it might take me a while to get back to you. Anyway, and if you want lessons, let me know, and we can get together for like an hour or so on Zoom or Skype and talk about what that would look like. It's, I guarantee, very different than any other music lessons you've ever had. Yeah, man. Well, I hope this is helpful for you. All right, take it easy.